and the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the Pope chair under it. Scroll down, look at the Pope chair under
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young.
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown lesson.
Young TV.
I found out that this man, who was Dr. Malachi York, had been arrested with allegations of child molestation. And I read that in the Athens Banner Herald. One thing I thought was odd when I read the article was that it was indicated that he had a plea bargain in both the state case, because he had a state and federal case, state case and the federal case. Well, most attorneys know that you really can't plea bargain in the federal system as far as agreeing on a sentence. And so about June of that year, I read that the federal judge denied the plea agreement in the federal case. All right? And I knew at that point, I said, he has a problem. And so I'm feeling my obligation as a black attorney to find out as much as I can about this, because it seems like this is a big injustice.
Hello, my name is Habiba Washington, and today I'm here to put on record the truth behind all of the lies brought up in the case against Malachi York. I'm going to start off by saying that I'm not being forced, threatened, coerced, or pressured to do this tape. I am also going to state that, as you can tell, I'm not under any kind of influence, alcohol or drug. I want to begin with all of the events that led up to the final verdict in the case against Malachi. I want to start off with how it started, where it started, when, and the reason why. I left the community in February of 2001. I moved from Georgia and I went to New York and lived with my family. In about March of 2001, I was contacted by Jacob. Jacob is the son of Malachi York. He's also an ex-member. Jacob contacted me, and our conversation was basically about the good times that we had in the community, what we went through, how we grew up, just making up for old times. 2 months after that, Jacob called me. This was in May. Jacob called me about a trip to Florida, a trip where a lot of some of the girls and boys that were going down, ex-members that were going to go down to Florida just to hang out, to have fun, or whatever. I agreed to go on the trip. I told Jacob that I would come on the trip. I left from New York, went to Georgia. We all met up at Jacob's house. It was me, Jacob, Nicole Lopez, Noor Rashid, East, Esther, probably some other girls and boys that I don't remember.
Now we're getting ready to cut to a clip where Jacob York admits to meeting up with Nicole Lopez, right? Which is Tariq Noel's sister and Amanda Noel's sister. Keep in mind the connection. But Jacob York approaches Nicole Lopez to work with him in assisting to take down his father. And keep in mind, black devils use strong persuasion. He says that, Nicola, we know what you did last summer. We know about the little boys that you were sleeping with, and that the feds know about it. And if you don't work with us, you will be going down just like the rest. Understand the plot here and the scheme and how it all ties in together and how everybody tie in together and they all family and connected. Keep in mind, Nicola Lopez is Tariq Noel's sister, and he did what he did to protect his sister.
I ran into a couple of, like, Nicole Lopez, I ran into her at Lenox Mall. Oh, I hadn't seen her since 89, 90, so it was like very nice to see her. She was my childhood sweetheart at one point, so I was like, oh, okay, great. So we kicked it, and then we hung out a few times, and then there's like a couple other people, like, you know, reconnected, and was like kind of, hey, I ain't seen you in a while, blah, 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 blah. Now, mind you, at this point, I don't know the extent of what's going on up there. I knew what I saw when I left. There was no one explaining to me anything else. Until one day we all riding to Miami together, right? And then all of a sudden, like, this whole big thing came out. It was like a bunch of people grew up together. You know, I go to Miami for Memorial Day weekend every year anyway. You know, that's just one of my places. I go to Miami actually 10 times a year. I just like the place, you know? So I decided, okay, cool, I'm going. If y'all want to roll, we'll rent 2 vans. Everybody will chip in and we'll ride down there. It ended up starting with 5 people. It ended up being 25 people, you know?
Jacob wanted all of us meaning me, Nicole, Karima, he was talking to a couple of people, different people that left the community. He wanted us to bring a case against his father.
I think if I was that instrumental in the case, I would have been on the stand. That's how I believe.
How come Jacob York didn't testify?
I don't know why the government put him up. I think it was too dangerous to put him up. I wouldn't call Jacob York because I know he would say a lot of negative stuff, but they weren't going to call Jacob York for me to properly cross-examine him to bring out the fact that all of these witnesses went on a trip to South Beach in Miami a little bit before they started going to the government and kind of came up with this plan. We had witnesses as to that. We even had a witness that was willing to say that Jacob York stated that he was setting his father up. But the government, the court wouldn't allow it to come in. His own sister stated that Jacob York stated to him that he was going to create this story and bring his father down.
Yeah, he's behind it all because we all sat down and we talked and, you know, we was going to figure out how we was going to set it up. We were just going to back each other's story in whichever way we could, even if it meant lying for each other.
The charges brought up against Malachi were all lies. We did back each other's story up.
And we had another witness to corroborate that testimony that said he heard when Jacob York came, the witness stated that Jacob York came to him to help him commit some check fraud. But while he was talking to him, he talked about this whole thing he's doing to bring down Dr. York.
The conspiracy to bring down Dr. York was known by me in 2002. The main axis and the motive behind it was Jacob York's, also known or is known as, his legal name is Yaqub Muhammad. The conspiracy that involved him and the numerous other ex-members of our community.
I know all of the alleged victims personally. They lived at my house. I was in South Beach with them, like I said before, and I just want the public to know what really happened. To know that Malachi York is innocent. He never molested any children. He didn't do anything.
Now, of course, I did help a lot of these people get jobs. I did help them, you know, get their lives together. You know, help them get apartments, help them, you know, like I did that for a lot of them. Sure, no problem. And a lot of them ended up being witnesses, or half of them or whatever ended up being witnesses. Great. I have a loyalty to them that I don't have to York. Do you understand my point?
Before we actually went down to Florida, I had a conversation with Jacob outside of his house, and Jacob brought up some feelings that he had about his father. Jacob was really upset with his father. He stated that he hated his father, that he felt that his father doesn't need to be alive, that he shouldn't even be given life. He felt that his father needs to just rot in jail. Jacob wanted all of us meaning me, Nicole, Karima, he was talking to a couple of people, different people that left the community. He wanted us to bring a case against his father. Jacob told me that some of the girls and boys that left the community had went to the government about different things that was going on in the community, meaning child molestation. Before I left the community, I was the main person in charge of the finances, as well as in charge of anything that went on with the community, the living, eating, anything, the financial, anything that happened regarding any of the members in the community. I dealt with that, so I was basically in charge. Jacob told me that the FBI knew who I was and that they were told about certain things that I've done in the community, and some of those things I can be incriminated for. Jacob told me that if I don't go to the FBI first, then they would come after me, they would incarcerate me, they would take my children away from me, because there are things that they were told about me that could incriminate me.
Not putting all the energy in one man. That's the problem I have with them. It's all hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy. They're worshiping this man like he's God's gift to the world, and that's what they truly believe. And he is God on earth, and he's going to be their only salvation. It's like, since when? And you tell me these guys are intelligent and they can't see through this? They can't see through the fact that this is what every charlatan has said since the beginning of the time, that through me you got to get salvation. What's the difference between him and anybody else that's teaching religion on earth, or any of the other charlatans? He sounds like everyone else.
As you can see, Jacob York clearly indicates himself as hating or having a hate for his father, right? And he clearly indicated himself as being part of the Florida trip and setting the Florida trip up. Now, people were saying that Jacob York went to the feds. Yakub York says that his dad's a charlatan, which means a con artist. But he's the real con artist. The people who are calling people and stuff are the real people, man. Jacob York is the real con artist. I mean, you can't make stuff like this up. All the evidence is there that Jacob York set up his father to go down for crimes that he didn't commit, due to his hatred of his father, going back to him feeling like Doc let his mother die, him feeling like Doc didn't want to give him money to go towards the music industry, right? Because he was with working with Lil Kim. He's working with these people, right? Junior Mafia, Big, right? Cameron, them, Rockefeller, right? He's a manager in the music industry, right? For these different artists. Keep in mind, Jake York wanted to be like the Suge Knight of the East Coast. And he get the music industry business passed down from his father, which we have reason to believe that Jacob York not even Malachi's son, man. He looked like a devil. Jacob the Snake, or Yakub, wanted to be like his father, right? Keep in mind, Doc was in the music industry, real heavy. He was a ghostwriter for a lot of the music that you hear during the late 60s and the 70s.
Yeah, Jay-Z was a part of the organization. He was brought in through Jazzo. If you look at Jazzo video, the originator, you'll see Jay-Z holding a picture of my pops, and Jacob is in the video too.
I didn't
know
Jacob was in that video.
Yeah, Jacob's in that video too. Yeah, take a look at that video. Yeah, Jacob, he looked young in that video. That's because he wasn't so fat in that video. But yeah, he's in that video. The originator. Yeah, so a lot. My father. If you look on my page, you'll see a picture of my father with Russell Simmons, and they looking at is two women in the middle of them, and of course my pops is looking mad sharp in the picture, but Russell Simmons is right there. So yeah, all of that. Yeah, you'll see that there's a connection with all of this, and even in the music industry, there's a lot of stuff that my father has done in the music industry. People thought that, you know, he made his money majority off the organization. No, he didn't. My father made money as a ghostwriter and making music. That's where he got most of his money. He took his money and invested it into helping our community, into helping our people. And then when he started doing that is when people started turning on him, because they did not want him to be uplifting the Black people when their whole purpose is to destroy our people. So my father became a threat to all of these people.
Yeah. Somebody say Nas. Yeah, Nas is a student.
Yeah.
He
And
mentioned
so was
Dr.
Prodigy. And look,
Malachi Z York in the Triple Threat song.
about this, and so was Prodigy,
Mobb Deep.
who supposedly choked on an egg or something like that. My father was paying for his sickle cell treatments. My father was doing a lot of good stuff for a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, even including having he was doing the Shriner thing and stuff. They was going to hospitals paying for children that had cancer, leukemia. What's his name? Sayed, who also passed, who has sickle cell anemia. My father was doing a lot of stuff that people just want to discredit him, you know, and it's sad. But, you know, I got proof of a lot of this stuff too. I got pictures, you know what I'm saying, of them going to these places and doing all of these good deeds and stuff. I still have a lot of that stuff.
Shout out to Dr. York. You know what I mean? He's doing 135 years right now. Hope you.
Like Dr. Malachi York, cause I talk like Dr. Malachi York, cause I talk like Dr. Malachi York. Play the sidewalk.
He said, what kind of spell is mankind under? Only one who was talking about that is Dr. York. And in the Triple Threat song, he said he'll probably get shot. He said, because I talk like Dr. Malachi York. You know what I mean? That wasn't no random name to say. Kanye know, Consequence know. Everybody knows. Everybody knows, y'all. It ain't nothing little.
Everybody, it's not something that nobody know. Everybody know. It's just that people were told, if you say something, we're gonna discredit you too.
Yeah, you get blackballed.
You're gonna be discredited next. And you see how they just slowly taking people down one by one by one. You know what I'm saying? Some of these people, they need to be taken down. And then there's those people that, you know, you'll pay attention. All they did was speak righteous music or put out righteous stuff. And those people are very limited in the industry. They make sure that, you know what I'm saying, that they're not up there where, you know, where it's uplifting the people. They make sure that they highlight people that are destroying our community. So like, for example, you notice there was a big thing between Nas and Jay-Z. You get what I'm saying? And Jay-Z, he technically stole Jaz-O whole style, stole everything about him, and became Jay-Z.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And of course, with the help of, you know, Junior Mafia, Biggie, and all of that, putting him on the tracks, which that's where Jacob come into play at.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because when you look at Lil' Kim's first album, Hardcore, Jacob's name is on that. They was also hanging out with Junior Mafia right there on Fulton Street, in Brooklyn, New York.
And it wasn't just them; they were biting off. They were biting off KRS-One. It was a lot of brothers who was giving props to the master teacher, African Bambaataa. Okay,
yeah, that's a fact.
And that's how he went from the drug dealer, because Jay-Z was pushing the drug dealer shit, to the Mason drug dealer. So now the esoteric drug dealer.
Yes.
Okay, but in all actuality, he became he just.
And may I add, not for nothing, I'm gonna say something, because you know, when I was a kid, I used to see some of this stuff too. You know, shit. You know, that whole case that we see going on with Puff Daddy, that shit go with them too. They all a part of that shit too. There was a girl named Charlie Baltimore that nobody talk about, and she was right there in the middle of all that shit too. That's and she probably trying to dip and dodge at this point. But I'm sorry, honey, if I said your name, but your name need to be said, because you know the truth. You know that these niggas was out here sniping these brothers. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know what's going on. Y'all know what's going on. People know what's going on.
Here goes something else people probably didn't pay attention to. Okay, and that's why I say don't be surprised a letter to Jay-Z come. Okay, because a lot of stuff I know. Nas wasn't beefing with Jay-Z about no music shit. You know what I mean? It go a lot deeper. Puff, Biggie, Jacob York, okay, and wanted to push Lil' Kim. And he coming to Lil' Kim. See how deep it go? Jacob was swearing. He said, I can do this. I'm going to make it big in the industry. Da, 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 da. He said, yo, what are you going to do when Biggie dies?
Please. Instead of
I'm sorry. Go
You
ahead.
good. He said, what are you going to do when Biggie dies? Right? Jacob York didn't understand that question. And then Biggie died. You know what I mean? And he ain't been big since. Because all that Junior Mafia, all that. I love it when you call me Big Papa. Niggas was calling Jacob York Big Papa. You feel what I'm saying? So, okay, Dr. York had a phone call where he was saying Jacob York told him because he wouldn't put money behind Lil' Kim that he was going to shoot him in the face. Right? He said, no, he said, I'm going to come and shoot you in the head. That's what he said. He said, I'm going to come and shoot you in the head. I'm going to come to the land, shoot you in the head. He was upset. He said 6 months after he told Jacob he wasn't going to put money behind Lil' Kim, he called him. He called down to the land, was like, yo, I'm going to come up there and shoot you in the head. Right? Okay, cool. That's on phone call. All right, so for some reason, these people want their father gone. You with me? There's a different type of energy moving there. That's why he said, if that ain't the devil, I don't know who it is. Now, make this make sense to me. Did you ever have an encounter after the situation or before the situation happened on May 8, 2002 when it came to the kidnapping? Did you ever have an encounter with Nikki Lopez of her indicating herself and explaining what her role was? Did she ever say anything or slide anything to you?
You talking to
Yeah.
me? No, I just knew she was a damn weirdo on the land. She was I seen her touching on kids when I was young. I seen her doing weird shit, sneaking out of 103 to go play with the boys and stuff like that behind trees and stuff like that. I seen that weird shit. Then people was talking about, how about this? The STDs that these people was talking about every weekend on the land. Pops used to let the teenagers go up the hill and play on the stage and all of that stuff. And there was people coming from off the land that they was sleeping around with and doing all kinds. It was all kinds of freak fests going on up there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Pops used to be down the hill in the house minding his business. And to the point where he had to stop them kids from going up there on the hill, up the hill. You know where the stage was, because you remember it was like a walk from where the houses was all the way up towards the stage because it was kind of separate. Nah, these people, they was doing all kinds of crazy stuff up there.
So,
and she was and trust and believe you me, she was another one that was messing around with them. Nikki was messing around. I wouldn't be surprised if she was messing around with Kush, because she was messing around with a lot of those younger boys.
You're indicating somebody as a rapist.
Yeah, exactly.
Or by law.
That's a woman that's raping children. Women is raping. If a woman is doing that to kids, she raping children.
Exactly, by law. Okay, so Kush, yes or no? You said that to me. Now, y'all know when I ask these niggas yes or no questions, okay, the answer is yes. You know what I mean? Or most of the time it's yes. Or when they say that answer, it's me telling you, I'm indicating and showing you this shit is 100% real. Like, but let's see if they gonna stand on it. Yes or no? Did you tell me that you was fucking Nick and he was 14 years old? Because it was bragging, and when he wasn't saying it in a negative way. But the law don't give a fuck if you were saying negative or positive. You with me? So it adds up, don't it? That Habiba Washington was able to say that Jacob York was able to approach all of them and say, we know what you did last summer. We know what you did, Nikki. We know what you did, Habiba. All right? If you don't want to go to jail for these crimes, okay, you might want to collaborate with me against Dr. York. And y'all told me, Iz said it, you said it, oh, actually, Iz said it, and it's whoever the sister was around him said it, that they heard Jacob York say in their presence that he'll shoot Pops in the face.
They was at the Buttercup Lounge. A couple of his kids was at the Buttercup Lounge, and they was literally sitting there talking about how they was going to do this, that they was going to take Pops down, and they literally asked me to join in, and I was like, no. So with the reason why me and Jacob never had a relationship,
who asked you to join
was because Jacob did. Jacob. And I told him no. And he said, well, disown me as a brother. And I said, okay, bye. And notice is me and Jacob ain't never have a relationship. Y'all ain't never noticed that?
Yeah, fact. But what you say? He told you to join what?
He told me so at the Buttercup Lounge, they was all talking about how they was gonna take Pops down. I was young. You know what I'm saying? I even got a picture of me that day. Somebody sent this picture to me. Like as a matter of fact, my mom said my sister Leah had all these pictures because you know my sister Leah was there. It was her birthday, it was Fatima's birthday, and it was Besma's birthday. They was throwing a birthday party at this place called the Buttercup Lounge on Adelphi Street in Brooklyn, New York, right? And when I went there, you know, because I was invited. When I went there, I don't think Izzy was there. No, it was Isaac there, Ish was there, Jacob was there, Ernest, Yasmin, not our family Yasmin. There was this girl that Fatima used to hang out with. They used to have this salon called Nappy Roots over there on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. They was sitting there talking about how they was gonna do this, that they was gonna take Pops down. And he asked me, he was like, well, since you just left the land, because this is when I had got moved, when I had got transported from off the land and I ended up in the streets. And then when I ended up with this lady that took me in and I stayed with her. You know what I'm saying? When they asked me to go to that thing, I went there. So these people ain't seen me in years. And they was like, yeah, well, you had just left the land. So you could come with us and you could say this and you could say that. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that against my father. Like, are you people crazy? And he was like,
look, real quick.
Then he was like, well, then you might as well stay in the streets. He was like, I'll buy you a bit. When he offered it to me, he was like, I'll buy you a Benz. I'll put you through school. I'll do all of that stuff. Whatever you need, I'll do it for you. He was like, all you got to do is do this. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, no. And I was like, and then he was like, well, you stay in the streets. So I stayed in the fucking streets.
I want to say I appreciate that stance. You're choosing not to collaborate with Jacob may have been just the glitch that was needed. You know what I'm saying? To help Pop out.
If you see this man, run! Yeah. Jacob York, man, he got a lot of history, but I really met him in the time when I was fucking with him back in 2000. The D-Lo days.
And Jacob believed in him.
But he ain't really owe me like that. All the way though. He still owes me some money from back then.
Oh, I offered to give you that money. Get this now. I offered the money to him 2 years ago. I said, Colo, come down. I'm going to give you the money, and he never showed up. You remember?
That sounds realistic, Kurt.
Maceo's album. Come produce a track. He said, I want to get this paid. I said, come on, come get the money. I told him, all right, come get the money right now.
Hey, that's call me, boy.
So a lot of testimony that did not make it into the trial was the testimony that basically corroborated the conspiracy story.
Yes.
And I know that after the trial, Eatonton Messenger actually had an article that Jacob York actually did an interview with, I believe it was Rob Teacher.
Yes.
He works for the Eatonton Messenger now. He was fired from the Macon Telegraph.
That's correct.
And but actually, the conspiracy, it's much bigger than just Jacob York. Basically, what you're saying is he was just a pawn in the game.
Exactly. Jacob York was a pawn. Jacob York had a store in Atlanta. Right before the trial, Jacob York's store closes and he disappears. Why didn't the prosecution bring their key witness and put him on the stand? Jacob York. Because they knew if Jacob York got on the stand, he got cross-examined, the truth would come out that he was on payroll, and that it's conspiracy, and that it's bigger than Jacob York. When they say we're trying to make a conspiracy with my so-called son, no, it's not. It's Middle District, Georgia, and their conspiracy against all black ministers in the state of Georgia. Because once the precedence is set on this case, it's going to start flying across the different ministers' watch. Unless we make sure that they don't pull that off.
Right now, one of the named people in the conspiracy is your son, Jacob York. How does a father handle something like that?
Well, his real name is not Jacob York. His name is Yaqub Abdullah Muhammad. Right? His mother's name is Ubaida Abdullah Muhammad, and he has, siblings, brothers and sisters. Right? It's a very touchy situation because his mother died of an aneurysm attack. Right? Me and her have been separated for many, many, many years. You follow? And she died of an aneurysm attack, which her father also died from, and one of her brothers, Maddie, all died from Maddie Johnson. All right? He went off and told people that I was responsible for the death of his mother. This really affected the kid. It destroyed his mind. Then on top of that, one of his brothers, one of the twins, which is my son Yetalahi, he was at a party in New York. He was down here with me, living in Georgia. He said he was going up to New York to spend a little time with his sister Fatima because of Valentine's Day, and he wants to let her know that he is going to move down to stay with me in Georgia. You follow? And when he went to New York, he got involved with them, hanging around, living in his brother Jacob's house. He calls himself Jacob or Jake York. Yaqub, living in Yaqub's house with him. Yaqub eventually threw him out of his house. He got involved with another member of his family and ended up in a party and was, shot fatally and died. I think that also affected his mind. Then he was involved with people like Little Kim and them. I ain't got to tell you about Little Kim and her dress habits and the vulgarity and, the lewdness of and involved with that corporate. He called himself Yorktown Records or Yorkville or something like that, Records. And he was hanging out with the Junior Mafia and hanging out with that whole hip-hop, hot crowd, tough guys, stuff like that. Called himself gangster. And he's involved with all kind of bank fraud and forging false checks and all kind of things and trying to, trick the government. So he came to me at one point and asked me for some money, right? He wanted me to help back him to back Little Kim. I told him I cannot back a person like Little Kim with my reputation. I'm not going to put my reputation on the line. And, well, she's nude and stuff like that. I ain't got nothing against her and her career. That's her life. But it doesn't fit into our lifestyle as Yamasee Native American Moors, and I didn't want that to reflect on our community. He got very mad. He started cursing, stomping around, and, he left and went off. Him and Sakina Parham at the time was kind of close because they used to be boyfriend and girlfriends when they were upstate. See, Jake York or Yaqub was Ada's boyfriend. He was also Sakina Parham's boyfriend, and they had gotten caught several times upstate having sex, right? And they got in trouble for that. And he was mad about that. He was running a record store that I once had up there in Liberty, New York, and they was caught stealing money out the store, and he got in trouble for that. I did everything I could to try to shape him into a better person, but down inside, he had this desire to go his own way. He became an avid hater of me, and he became one of the campaigners of this whole case, of launching this whole thing and getting these people together and threatening them and scaring them. He was on payroll, and he was on the payroll at the FBI. Now, a witness got on the witness stand who was his best friend, who was there when the deal was made with FBI agents, and he was also the one who was going to testify that Jake came to him because they knew he was good at forging checks and tried to get him to forge checks for him so he could use those forged checks to buy a house because his credit was not strong. His credit was around $2,000. He needed to be $24,000 to get covered from the bank. And the guy refused to do it, which is a friend of his called Damien Pryor, who was up there at the court to testify about this. And in their testimony, he testified how Jake York was on the government payroll. They got to Jake York for things he had did in the past, right? And then turned him. He already had a dislike for me, and they used that as an excuse to try to topple our organization and topple me. So he got to him and then told him to solicit people. And then he went around getting people. Meanwhile, while he's soliciting these people, like Tia Thomas, she was that guy Hakeem's girlfriend. And so he pulled her away from Hakeem, and he's having sex with her. He's having sex with Karima Hammer. He's having sex with Keenan Parham. He's having sex with all these people, and they all testified to it on the stand. Yes, that Jake York was the one having sex with all of these people, and then they all lived in this house together. The thing is, now, if he had hired this guy that was supposed to adjust checks so the amount of money would be suitable so he can get this loan from the bank, and the guy refused to do it, but then he eventually got the house anyway, and we have the records to show his accounts that he only had $2,000 in the bank, and we checked the records in the bank for the person in the house, and the records were up, then the forgery was actually done. This guy, Damon Pryor, didn't do it, but he forged it, and he bought this house along with Barbara Noel, which is Ada Lopez and David Noel and Amanda Noel's children. Those are the ones who are the ones, they're all in this case. You follow? So it's like a plot, it's a conspiracy. Then he got together with a bunch of these people and invited them down to South Beach, Florida, so he could get it together. They rented buses, they transported minors across the state line, but nobody said nothing. Coming out of Georgia all the way down to Florida, so they could, get together and plan their plot and get their story together. When they came back off the beach, South Beach, Florida, they went straight into the FBI's agency. Jake went back up in there and started letting him know who he had and how he got them coerced and how these people were all scared, and he told them, if you don't do it, we're going to get you in jail because you was involved in this, and we already know this, and we already know that, and they got a whole bunch of stuff, and putting the thoughts into people's head. And they started writing, and the agents wrote their own 302s and made these people try to memorize these 302s so they could use them on the stand. Things didn't go their way because everybody didn't comply. Jake couldn't convince everybody. A lot of people saw he was full of it. He brought down a bunch of hip-hop groups. They were down in South Beach. They was getting drunk. They were smoking marijuana. And we had a whole bunch of witnesses that were minors who were willing to testify on what went on in South Beach. The judge blocked it. The judge blocked some of the girls who were minors who said they had sex with him down there. The judge blocked it. The judge blocked the fact that they were smoking marijuana and using crack down there. The judge blocked it. The judge blocked it, the fact that they had parties where all the girls got naked and they was having big orgies and they videotaped it and we was getting access to the video. The judge blocked it. You know what I'm trying to say? Yes. So Jake was being used. I'm saying he's my son. son. He'll always be my son, right? And he said, I hope he's my son. I said like that, right? But he'll always be my son, regardless. You know, I can't say I'll ever hate him. That would be inhuman, right? But I know they manipulated him and they used him because they wanted to do the top of his organization. He had no concern with his organization because he was in the hip hop world, so he didn't have nothing to lose anyway. You follow? But they had him binded by things he did.
Right.
And then that prompted him to really go out and do a lot of devilishment. You know what I'm saying? In the course of trying to topple me.
Right.
How we're supposed to sentence somebody is without a shadow of a doubt. They have to be found guilty without a shadow of a doubt. Now, when you got people that were removed off the stand because they was found to be lying, when you got people like if somebody can remember the name, it escapes me right now, but one of the quote unquote victims that testified against Dr. York was found to be a murderer at the time of his testimony, where he testified against Dr. York. He killed an old white woman.
Abdul Salam in Athens.
Exactly, Abdul Salam. And you can look his case up right now. He was found to be a murderer. So at the time of his testimony, he was a murderer. Ada Nicole Lopez, she was a child molester. She was having sex, and we have records of that and letters of that, of her talking about how she was in love and how she was having sex with Kush Martinez at the time when he was 14 and she was between 23 to 24. Now, this is the question that we always ask, is when we're talking about the case of Dr. York, is it really about protecting children, or is it a bunch of disgruntled people who didn't like the way he taught, who didn't like the things he taught about, who didn't like the way the land was ran, who didn't like certain things, or certain victims who were actually victimized by the Georgia government or the Edenton government and forced to testify against Dr. York? Because if it's really about protecting children, Ada admitted to molesting children. So much so to the point where she got a government agreement to, or an immunity agreement for her to testify against Dr. York. So when we talking about this whole Dr. York thing, is it really about protecting children? Because in the Dr. York case, there was no evidence ever found in Dr. York's case that he wasn't sentenced for child molestation. They got him on RICO and racketeering. RICO and racketeering, and when you look into the court case, you'll see that they say that he actually overpaid his taxes when they was trying to get him on tax evasion. You'll see that they admitted that the state prosecutor admitted that they didn't have any evidence, and that they said on the record that we don't have any evidence that these children were ever molested. When you look at Tariq's statement with the medical examiner, he actually states that he was never abused. And when you look at the actual records, and we have those as well, if you just give us a second to pull it up, Tariq stated that he denied abuse. He denied ever being abused. So now we're dealing with 20 years later where people are coming back and saying, oh, well, this happened to me. Oh, well, that happened to me. Why does your statement not line up? Why is it that for years, Jacob York said he had nothing to do with the case? For years, everybody a part of the case said that Jacob York had nothing to do with the case. Why is it that Sheriff Howard Richard Fields said that Jacob York had nothing to do with the case? Why is it that the judge that presided over Dr. Malachi Z York's case said that Jacob York had nothing to do with the case? And we actually have video recording of Jacob York stating where he says that actually my father subpoenaed for me to come in court, and the judge denied it because the judge said this guy has nothing to do with the case. Why do you keep trying to bring him into court? Yet you have Sheriff Howard Richard Fields that comes out on Discover ID and states that he didn't have a case if it wasn't for Jacob York. And if you give us a second, we can pull that video up and you can see that as well, where Sheriff Howard Richard Fields states that I didn't have a case. The whole case started when Jacob York came to me. So if Sheriff Howard Richard Fields is stating that the whole case started when Jacob York came to him, why was it being said by the judge that he had nothing to do with the case? Why was Fields saying it had nothing to do with the case? And why were all of the other co-conspirators that conspired against Dr. Malachi Z York all saying that he had nothing to do with the case, when the sheriff who made the arrest himself is now saying that he wouldn't have had a case if Jacob York didn't ever come to him? Now, why is that important? Because when you go to one of the key witnesses, who was Habiba Washington states that she was coerced by Jacob York in the trip to South Beach, Georgia, and that they lined everything up and they talked about how they was going to come together against Dr. York, and they put all of their gripes together and said what they was going to do to come against Dr. York. And then Jacob York set the whole thing up. Habiba Washington explains how Jacob York took her to the FBI office and had her speak to the FBI. She explains the whole thing, and now Sheriff Howard Richard Seals comes out saying that he wouldn't have had a case, and he explains the exact same thing that Habiba Washington explained in her recantment. And that's another point that a lot of people miss, is that a lot of these quote unquote victims or witnesses went back and recanted their statements saying that nothing ever happened to them, that they was coerced by the United States government, or they was told that certain things was going to happen to them or their family or their parents, or certain things that happened. Prime example, like Tariq Noel. And in a second, we're going to get to this video because I think this is important for everybody to hear. But when you look at Tariq Noel and you look at his mother, it was a known fact that his mother came into the community by way of fraud, dealing with some Panamanian fraud, check fraud, and things of that nature. That his family was dealing with fraud. And this is what the government used to use against them to say, if you don't help us take Dr. York down, we're going to go against your mother. We're going to go against, and there's letters that Tariq Noel wrote to his mother that we have records of, where he's stating that he had to do certain things because he was afraid that it was going to come out about what they was doing with the house.
Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in. This series is to be continued. Now we're running a 10K fundraiser for the master teacher. We're trying to raise $10,000 by June 26th, which is the master teacher's birthday, right? If you want to help us out on that, what you would do is you would cash out Uma, the master teacher's daughter, right, at Uma's York LLC, right? And keep in mind, we working to get the master teacher out, and we need a couple funds to make a couple plays, right, on getting certain things pushed through and moved around, and certain travel expenses to go and get certain things filed. So if you want to help us out and you got love for the master teacher, man, show us some love.